Hello everyone, so we've got quite an extraordinary game today, played in the 1980 British Championships between John Speelman and Mike Basman. And here we're going to look at it from Mike Basman's perspective, who was playing black in this game. Speelman played e4, and now Basman plays the Grob with black. He plays g5, and remember this is in the British Championships, so what a move to make in such a serious tournament. Speelman played d4, so he's attacking this g5 pawn, and h6 defends it, and Speelman went straight in for the attack with h4, and Basman took on h4 and rook takes h4. So after 4 moves we've already got this interesting position. Imagine walking past this game and seeing this position in the British Championships. It must have been quite a sight. But this rook on h4 isn't actually too bad. The only problem is that this queen is sort of x-raying it, so white just has to be a bit careful. Basman here played d5, but he said he backfired a bit. This is due to the fact that Speelman now takes on d5, and after e6 this queen attacks this rook, so Speelman plays rook h5, and Basman here plays knight to f6, attacking the rook once again and attacking on d5. But here Speelman now goes for an exchange sacrifice. He plays d takes e6. Basman actually ignores the rook hanging on h5 with the knight. This is due to the fact that after knight takes h5, Speelman can now play e takes f7 check. After king takes f7, queen takes h5 check. So black now does have the exchange. He has the rook for the knight, but black's king is wide open here and literally has no protection. There's no pawns, and white's game will be rather simple. So for this reason Basman didn't go for this, and it's not surprising. Instead he ignored the rook and played bishop takes e6 from Basman here, and Speelman continues knight to c3. Basman notes that he feels that Speelman was pushing his luck here, and actually just retreating the rook in this position was adequate. Let's just say rook h1. This is absolutely fine for white. If anything, black's got a worse position. The only problem is white isn't as developed, but still rook h1 will be fine. But knight c3 just invites black on a bit. So Basman now takes on h5, and after queen takes h5, Basman plays bishop to b4. Queen takes d4 winning a pawn is also an option. Basman felt this would actually encourage white's position, so white has a positional advantage, and this could increase if queen takes d4 was played. For instance, bishop e3 developing again. After queen d7, white develops with knight to f3, maybe bishop g7 and rook d1, and white's got a decent position for the exchange. Queen e7, bishop b5, maybe c6, bishop e2, and Stockfish gives this as dead even at the moment, so even though black is the exchange up, there is some counterplay from white. However, you have to take black's position. If black can manage to castle and get into the decent middle game, they should have no issue. But Basman played bishop b4 like I said, and Speelman played knight ge2 in this position. Queen b5 doesn't actually work here, so if check, knight c6 to defend the bishop. Queen can't take on b7 due to just knight takes d4. And if the queen now captures on b4, there comes knight c2 with a family fork, and it's game over for white. So white can't play queen b5 here. Instead, Speelman plays knight g2, knight c6 from Basman, and bishop e3 from Speelman. Black just has to be a bit careful about this d5 pawn getting pushed up at some point. That would be a total disaster for black. So queen d7 from Basman, and now a3 attacking the bishop on b4. But Basman plays the intermezzo move, bishop g4. His reasoning behind that was just to move the bishop away from this d5 idea that white could play. Queen b5 from Speelman, and a6. Just a quick note, the queen can't take on b7 due to rook to a7, so the queen is actually trapped in this position. It's got no more squares to go to, and resignable. Instead, after a6, Speelman played queen to d3, and Basman now just took on c3, check, giving up the bishops. So Basman says black has been forced to trade the bishop, and white's potential compensation for the exchange starts to increase, so preferably black wouldn't have liked to give these two bishops up. But Speelman takes on c3, Basman castles queenside. At the end of the day, black is still the exchange up, so any endgame would suit black to the ground. f3 attacks the bishop from Speelman. Basman retreats bishop back to e6, and white finally castles queenside. Knight to e7, threatens to play knight d5, and knight to f4 from Speelman. Knight d5 is actually played, captures, captures, and queen d2. And queen c6, stopping any g4 ideas from white. And queen c6 also stops any c4 ideas, which is white's plan to start launching these two pawns up, and that's where the counterplay could come. So queen c6 was a good move. King b1, and here Basman plays h5, trying to push this pawn up to weaken the f3 square. And I think here white should have just built up slowly with b3. And after queen d6, king b2, maybe h4, bishop f4. White's starting to come into the game a bit with these powerful pawns, maybe c4's on the cards at some point. But white is still very much in the game in this position. Instead of the h5, bishop g5 was played by Speelman, so he's attacking the rook, and Basman moves his rook to e8. And Basman thinks that bishop h4 was actually a superior move here, just blocking this h pawn up and stopping any weaknesses on this side of the board. Instead, bishop f4 was played. Basman felt bishop f4 allowed bishop c4. Now if white plays d5 in this position, they can just capture on d5 because the tactics suit black. After queen takes d5, bishop takes, rook takes, black can play rook to e1, and they're going to win the bishop back. And this should be a winning game for black. So after bishop c4, bishop e5 is played by Speelman, and just rook hg8, trying to attack this g2 pawn. d5 is played by Speelman, but Basman now just takes this, bishop takes d5, and white can't actually recapture because if queen takes d5 here, rook d8 would win the game. If white captures on c6, black can just play rook takes d1, the king is forced to move, and they'll just recapture the queen at a later date, and it's two rooks versus two bishops, and this should be a winning game for black. Instead here, Speelman plays queen to d4, threatening to play queen to a7. And in this position, Basman actually played a terrible move, but what he should have played was probably just play rook d8 here, threatening to play bishop to a2 check. And if queen f4, bishop a2 anyway, and king c1, captures, captures, and just queen c5, black's got a tremendous position. Instead, Basman played the weird move bishop to b3, attacking c2. And Speelman actually played bishop d3 here, which is a terrible move. What he should have played is c takes b3. And what he missed was actually after rook d8, it looks as though white's going to lose this rook on d1 due to this rook. But in fact, white can now play rook to c1, so attacking black's queen at the same time. Both players are attacking each other's queens, but after rook takes d4, white can play rook takes c6. If rook d1 check, then just rook back to c1, captures, captures, and white's in the driving seat. Got two bishops to the rook, and this should be a winning game for white now. So bishop b3 was a terrible move by Basman, but Speelman didn't see rook c1. Instead he played bishop to d3, and Basman just played rook to d8 now. Queen a7 can't actually be played here due to rook takes d3. If queen to a8, king to d7, and you'll see here after rook takes d3, king e6, white's got too many problems. The pawn on c2 is attacked twice, and the queen on a8 is also under threat, and white's just in a busted position here. So after rook to d8, queen e3 is played by Speelman, and bishop c4 now from Basman. Speelman now plays queen to a7 because this c2 idea is no longer a threat, but black can play bishop takes d3, which is what Basman played, and after c takes d3, just queen b6, and it's mop up time for Basman. Queen takes b6 is played to swap queens, c takes, and just g3, and basically here black just has to be careful and it's a one endgame. So in the game, Basman played king to d7, bishop f4, king c6, rook c1, and king b5. So black's just getting his king up into the game, making it a powerful piece. Rook c7, rook takes d3, rook takes, and rook takes f3. So after rook f5 check, king c4, rook takes h5, and king b3. Black's given up a few pawns to get his king in a great position. Rook f1 is now a massive threat with checkmate, so white's forced to play rook h1. Basman plays rook to f2, attacking b2. Bishop c1 from Speelman to defend, and rook takes g3 from Basman. Rook h7 from Speelman trying to attack this b7 pawn, but Basman just plays b5, trying to push these pawns up. and white's got to be very careful indeed here. If rook takes b7, black can actually just finish the game with rook to g1, and if rook c7, just take on b2 because that bishop on c1's pinned. After king a1, rook c2, it's game over for white because rook takes c2, king takes, and this bishop is lost. So even in this position, white can't take on b7. So Speelman actually plays rook c7 here, Basman plays b6, and black's just going to launch these pawns forward. Rook c6 from Speelman, rook h3 from Basman, rook g6, rook c2, rook g1, and just a5 from black, preparing b4, rook g6, and rook c5 from Basman. And here Speelman actually resigned the game, mainly because b4 can't be stopped, and also just ideas like rook h1 are coming in, and it's going to be very hard for white to stop this. So yeah, that's how Basman won as black, playing the Grob in the British Championships against a very strong Grandmaster in Jonathan Speelman. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please drop me a like and subscribe if you did. Drop me a comment as well. I always love to read them and I try to respond to every single one of them. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Thank you.